Why were the Fish's grades so bad?
They went to swimming school or something.
They were below sea level. Welcome back, folks, to Brand Coverage. I'm Brandon Carney alongside Pat Gustafson.
And as
Pat,
chat would imply, I was taking a shit, which was why we are about 2 minutes late here.
Look, at the end of the day, if you just assume this podcast starts at 7:35 Eastern time, you'll probably have a better time in terms of punctuality. Or maybe even just 7:32. I mean, that's what it is right now. So I think, give us
in the music
extra
biz,
minute
we
or
like
two.
to keep you waiting a little bit. If the show says 8:30, it'll go on at about 8:38, you know?
Exactly. Dude, it's like any sporting event ever. There's a couple minutes of the open that you have to get people, ready to watch before you really get the show going, or else you'll be talking to nobody for like 2 minutes. You don't want that.
Exactly.
Folks, it's a very important time of year as well. So the brand coverage intro will not be the only song we play right now, because it is officially time for March Madness, and it is time for Yukon to attempt to complete. Okay, well, listen, it's not as likely as we would have hoped at this point in the year. But technically, Yukon is still attempting to three-peat, and we'll see exactly how that effort goes. In this show today, we will be talking about a lot of March Madness stuff after we get through the NFL news of the last couple days. Obviously, we last talked to you guys a short 4 days ago, but there was some stuff to go through.
There was enough. There was enough stuff.
There was certainly enough. There were some skill players that did some stuff, finally signed with their teams or signed with a team. But yes, this will be a lot of March Madness preview as well. Pat, how are we feeling now that we're in March? How's your bracket coming along?
My bracket is more hilarious.
Mine is too.
So chalk, dude. I can't.
Oh,
I don't have.
boo.
I don't have any. The first few rounds, a lot of upsets. But in terms of the Elite Eight and on,
Who goes farther?
just
Yeah.
disgusting chalk. Which I mean, I guess is kind of the safe way to play it, and it ends up kind of being what happens, along with a couple stragglers. But it's like, what are the odds you're going to pick that double-digit team that gets to, the Sweet 16? It's like, then you're wrong and you feel like an ass. Like, oh, of course I should have picked the 4 seed. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, it's a more boring way to do it, though. You like being able to have the theoretical possibility of having an incredibly good bracket, maybe not a perfect one, because that's odds are shorter on that than like winning the lottery twice in a year or something ridiculous. So you're not going to have a perfect bracket, but the only way to have something that is, very impressive is to go off the board a little bit, because we see it every single year, some of these double-digit seeds, which brings me to, there will be a segment, folks, later in this show that is kind of one of the more fun ones I think we've done for a while, especially surrounding March Madness. Pat and I are going to go back and forth drafting double-digit seeds, specifically 11 seeds or worse, putting together our own little groups of 5 of them, and we are going to compete against each other in a little friendly competition throughout March Madness to see which one of our groups of double-digit seed, underdog types can actually pull out some wins. We're going to add up how many wins. Maybe you might want to weight it by round 2, get like an extra point or 2 if they win a second round game. Double it each round, something to that effect. But we're going to see, which underdogs we like the best, because underdogs at the end of the day are the name of the game in March Madness. They're the most fun part.
You look at March Madness, some of the March Madness darlings from past years, they tend to not come from the really big schools, except what was the big guy's name on NC State last year?
DJ Burns.
DJ Burns. See, he's a star, but you look at like the Doug Ederts and the Cameron Crutwigs, and who the hell was last year? Who was that guy?
Last year? DJ Burns was part of last year. Oh, Jack Golke was the white guy last year.
Oh, Jack Golke, exactly. Like, they don't come from these blue blood schools. They come from some of these underdogs. And what a kid on Wofford shoots underhand free throws, so I feel like he's kind of already in the lead.
Yep.
For March.
And he's facing Tennessee, who is just perennially a yikes in March.
So upsets are where it's at, but again, it's just impossible. It feels
tough.
impossible.
It's tough,
to get
but
it right.
it's definitely more fun when you try. But we'll get into which.
Oh, it's so
upsets.
more sad when you get it right, though.
Yeah.
There are like few better feelings in the
no.
world
There's
than
absolutely
correctly predicting a 12 seed winning. Like, yeah.
Arguably zero, better than sex. All right, let's get into the NFL news before we before we get into the March Madness stuff, folks. Fucking shit.
Good evening. I'm Ron Burgundy, and this is what's happening in your world tonight.
All right, folks. Actually, you know what? That was maybe the wrong thing to play because hold on.
Make it move, 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 make it move.
Because the Bengals, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins are officially done with their $1 million moves because they are keeping that core together. Jamar Chase, 4 years, $161 million, resets the record for highest paid non-quarterback in the sport after Myles Garrett recently said it. And then T. Higgins, not bad himself, 4 years, $115 million. I do want to say one thing off the bat. I thought it was very funny that Jamar Chase, like a year ago, was quoted as saying, you know, if I'm going to beat Justin Jefferson's contract, it's going to be by a lot, not by a penny. And ultimately, yeah, he beat Justin Jefferson by a lot, but he reset the market by the NFL version of a penny, which I thought was really funny, just by $1 million, so he could say, I'm the highest paid non-quarterback for as long as that lasts. As we know, markets get reset
constantly. The Bengals
constantly.
just took too long and got beat by this ridiculously random Myles Garrett extension that I don't even think Myles Garrett was expecting.
No, Myles Garrett is just happy to be rich if he has to suffer in Cleveland. But the Bengals are keeping this core together, so folks, you can put away your T. Higgins photoshops to the Panthers and the Patriots and the Chargers.
We don't have to talk about this. This doesn't have to be the Brandon Ayuk of last year.
I know.
That's the best part of all of this. I mean, the Bengals should be fucking thrilled, but that's the best part about this is we don't have to hear every fan base saying, we're just one T. Higgins away from this. Well, find another fucking T. Higgins, man.
Yeah, and it really doesn't happen that often that great wide receivers just become available, and this just happened to be another one in that line of great wide receivers that don't become available. I also think this is probably better for T. Higgins' longevity to be, you know, sort of the wide receiver 2 on an offense with both Joe Burrow and playing, you know, sort of behind, but sometimes ahead of Jamar Chase, you know, game by game, and may get a couple more targets here and there. Just a nice little cushy spot to be when you're a really good receiver like T. Higgins and, you know, you're maybe not one of the true top 5 alpha receivers in the league. It's just a really nice spot for him, and now he's being compensated in a way that makes him probably pretty comfortable staying there. Highest paid non-quarterback and now the highest paid wide receiver 2 in the league is T. Higgins. Burrow, Chase, and Higgins now account for 40% of the Bengals cap space.
And honestly, okay. Yeah, checks out.
I mean, it definitely checks out. They're apparently working on a Trey Hendrickson contract as well, per Diana Rossini. We'll see if that. I have no idea. How
are they getting this money?
How do we feel about this sort of commitment to these guys? Because obviously we know these are great players. You don't ever want to let great players go. But I can't help be reminded of, and the quarterback comparison is night and day, but I can't help be reminded of when we were sitting here talking about how Tua, you know, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle were all also getting a shit ton of the percentage of the cap space, despite the Dolphins not really accomplishing much, not having a super great defense to speak of. The Bengals have less than a super great defense to speak of. The Bengals defense is horrible. It's only ever really been good in recent memory back in 2022 when they somehow had the 6th best scoring defense in the NFL. How do we feel about this and how it may or may not sort of hamstring them going forward? Because yes, probably locked yourself into the best offense in football for the next several years. Defensively, though, what are we doing?
Yeah. Well, just to mention your comparison to the Dolphins, it's like, I think all 3 of these players are better than their counterpart on the Dolphins. So, like, it's a bit more understandable here. It's so tough because this offense, you know, like you said, is so good. Those, you know, I don't think there's a better quarterback, double wide receiver trio in the league.
No.
But, you know, it's funny because all these boomers complain, they're like, oh, all they do is throw points up, no one plays defense, blah, blah. The Bengals showed that defense matters because they lost a lot of games last year where Joe Burrow lit it the fuck up because their defense couldn't stop a pipe leak. Like, they just, they couldn't do a damn thing. So it's like, you need to be better, but now with all your cap going here, it's like, how do you realistically get better? Like, can they hang on to Trey Hendrickson? Or do they have to move him? That would be a huge blow. He's had a huge, you know, breakout here. So I understand why they did what they did. If you can lock both of those guys up like that, you absolutely do it. just the question is going to be, are they going to be able to piece together a defense that can at least be, they don't even have to be good enough, just not what they were this past year. They just need to be kind of bad so to let that offense do what they do. But the question is, are they going to be able to do that? And with their cap situation, who the hell knows?
Yeah, I think it's a matter of you put a lot of pressure on your ability to draft defensive players now, because you essentially have bowed out of being able to bid for high profile, big money defensive free agents should any become available. The Bengals are going to have to get a little better here at drafting defensive players. Now, they've done it a couple times in the past. They've had a few hits. Part of the reason that 2022 defense was so good was because they had Jesse Bates, who I believe was in like his 4th or 5th year with the Bengals at that point. But everything just kind of came together at that point, and then he ended up getting a big payday from the Falcons. But just looking at the Bengals, draft history over the last few years, there's not a ton of defensive, difference makers that they've really brought on board. So that's going to have to be something that
They even really picked many?
So last year they drafted a D lineman, Chris Jenkins, in the 2nd round, another D lineman in the 3rd round, cornerback Josh Newton in the 5th round. So I mean,
but are they using these like 1st round picks?
Premium picks? Yeah.
I can't.
So,
I'm sure there are some that I'm just not thinking of right now. But
right. So in 2023 they took Miles Murphy in the 1st round, who I don't believe has panned out to much. Miles Murphy last year played 13 games, did not register a sack as a defensive end. The year before, they drafted Dax Hill with the 31st overall pick in the draft, because remember, that was the year they went to the Super Bowl and lost. Dax Hill, I know, I don't believe is particularly well liked by the Bengals fan base. Played 5 games last year, started 5 games. So I guess, was he maybe hurt? Either way, we're not getting a lot of name brand defensive players.
I was going to say, and it's like these guys aren't even particularly close to name brand players. Like, there are some guys where you'd be like, oh yeah, I've heard of that guy. Like, he's solid, but these guys, it's like, I had a blank expression when you just said both of those players. Like, I knew who they were. They went in the 1st round, but it's just like, are they still there? Do they still do anything? So that's the thing. Dak tore his ACL week 5. Thank you, Alex. So there's that. But yeah, that's really what it's going to come down to here is, can they do what they've done so well offensively and find these great defensive players? And, they got rid of Lou Anarumo. I never know how to pronounce
I think it's
that.
Anarumo.
Anarumo and Antetokounmpo, yeah, and what are they? Al Golden now, right? The like the Temple coach or something, right? Is there new
that
DC
sounds right. Yeah, Bengal. Let's see.
Or is that Todd Golden?
Todd Golden is Florida's head coach.
So that's
Florida
I'm thinking maybe this. I imagine these two are brothers then.
It's Al Golden is the current defensive coordinator. Yes, you are correct. The Bengals are just going to have to make defense more of a priority in the draft, obviously. I think the question here with these extensions is, again, so much less about Jamar Chase, because this contract, while it is record-setting, it's not a surprise. With the cap always going up, we kind of probably figured, with Justin Jefferson getting $35 million a year or whatever it was, skill player contracts were going to get up to $40 million plus a year eventually. Yeah. No one's really blaming him for signing arguably the best receiver in football to that contract. It's more, did they need to do this for T. Higgins? Because of how good Joe Burrow is. It's one of those things where you don't have a team, I don't believe, where you have a quarterback that you need to have all the best weapons around him at all times. Is it nice? Yeah, obviously it's nice that between Burrow, Chase, Higgins, Chase Brown at running back, even holding on to Mike Gesicki at tight end, that you're able to put up, 40 points on any given game. That's great.
You have to, though,
but
is the problem.
Is it a correct management of assets when you have a quarterback as good as Joe Burrow, who is levels above a guy, just for comparison's sake, no shade, like Brock Purdy, who maybe needs to have more weapons around him just to, perform at high levels? So I think it's a valid question. I don't necessarily agree with it. I think it's going to make Joe Burrow very happy, but I think this is a case where you're really going to have to hit on defense in the draft, and I don't think it's a good formula.
That's the thing. Like, in a vacuum, it's like, hell yeah. But again, it's not. There's so much around it, and they're going to be one of the more interesting cases here this year, because like you said, all it takes is one off day here or one strong defensive showing, they could be just fucked. And we saw them narrowly miss the playoffs when they could have won a lot of those games that they lost, and especially based on the quarterback play. And I was also right. Al Golden was Temple's coach, so I went in my bag for that one.
That's fair. I think it's going to be a really interesting case study in just how far an insanely good offense and really bad defense can take you. Because last year, like, the lack of defense, yes, was obviously part of why they missed the playoffs, but it was also their perennial slow start issue that they had that knocked them out, because the Bengals, after finishing the year pretty strong, they only ended up missing the playoffs by one game. And when you think back to what they did early in the season, Pat, they lost to the Patriots. So if that doesn't happen, you are already, same record as the Broncos. I don't know where tiebreakers would have landed things as far as them actually getting in. But either way, you're right there. And then if the week 2, they lost to the Chiefs by 1 point. And yes, that's the Chiefs, and we know the Chiefs did that shit all fucking year. But if the Bengals were able to just come out of the gates a little bit hotter, I believe in that game against the Chiefs, and also for reference, both of these first 2 games, T. Higgins was hurt and did not play. In week 2 against the Chiefs, I believe Jamar Chase was pretty unproductive in that game. Let me make sure I'm not mixing that up with the first game, because I was looking at these stats earlier. Jamar Chase against the Chiefs. Yeah, that's what I thought. 4 catches for 35 yards against the Chiefs. Now, obviously, Chiefs defense, credit to them for being able to slow him down. But if the Bengals are able to come out a little bit hotter, even with a bad defense, like they would have made the playoffs last year, despite how bad their defense was. And that's kind of crazy. So, it's going to be an interesting strategy. I don't necessarily agree with it. All eggs in the offensive basket. One thing is for sure, for fantasy football purposes, Pat, I mean, the Chase Burrow stack is as desirable as it's ever been, because not only do you now know that you're getting, one of the best receivers in the game, one of the best quarterbacks in the game, even with Joe Burrow having that minimal, all loving rushing upside that we love to have out of quarterbacks. Still, that these guys are not only great players, but this team is specifically built for them to need to score as much as possible, rather than like a Mahomes situation.
And we've seen Zach Taylor be able to build an offense to fit that mold. So yeah, my goodness. I mean, again, the rushing upside is going to put Burrow behind, I'd say, the big 3, and maybe even maybe Jaden Daniels as well, yeah. Those rushing guys. But outside of the rushing guys, Burrow is by far and away the top other option, and I'd much rather have him than fucking Patrick Mahomes after last year. So I'd say at worst, Burrow's your QB5 here.
Draft Joe Burrow, but maybe just have like a streamer quarterback with a weak schedule for the first 2 weeks, because Burrow and the Bengals always need just a fucking few weeks.
They get some kind of like fringe QB1, like Patrick Mahomes or something, to fill in and then sit him on your bench.
Fucking ridiculous to say, man. Mahomes.
The
really
names
is...
I started over Patrick Mahomes this year were hilarious.
Mahomes really is going to be.
Cousins.
We've got a several year sample size now of Mahomes just not being a good fantasy quarterback. I am so curious where his.
And you know what's crazy is that him and Chiefs fans and anyone, they rightfully don't give a fuck, and that's the way I see it now. That's why I'm gonna avoid the guy entirely, because who cares? He's not a good fantasy quarterback, but he's a damn good quarterback. And
Patrick Mahomes is currently QB7 for early ADP.
Who's the 6th person ahead of him? Is it Herbert? No.
Baker Mayfield, which after last year, I get it.
They're bringing back their targets. You'd think our boy Bucky Irving will take a step up, make the offense better.
Yeah, then the Big 5 are ahead of them, so that's
like I said. I haven't fully thought about it.
No, of course not. And I mean, I think it's fucking March. It's March Madness. We're looking at brackets and drowning in them. I just think when we get a little closer to that time, it's going to be really interesting, because like with Mahomes at QB7 and then Jared Goff at QB8, this is going to be as obvious of a year to like either get one of the good guys or fucking wait as ever, because that tier, it's Mahomes, Goff, Jordan Love, Justin Herbert, Kyler Murray. Like I'm good. I will wait and take 2 of Drake May and Caleb Williams and hope for the best.
Fields.
Justin Fields is QB 24. I imagine that's going to change because he
that'll
just
change. It
signed.
has to, right?
So he'll probably go up into the teens at the very least. But yeah, I would much rather just take two of those guys and hope for the best than lock myself into a Mahomes or a Goff or a Love, because that's just icky. But that is a little aside there about fantasy quarterbacks as far as
We
Joe
are
Burrow.
a mostly fantasy podcast after all.
We are a mostly fantasy football podcast. That is true. That may get lost in the plot here a little bit in the offseason, but eventually we will get back fully to our roots, although still giving a fantasy perspective to everything here. We might give a fantasy perspective to March Madness, Pat. How do you feel? Where would High Points quarterback slot in as a fantasy wide receiver if he were to play?
How does
Where
this
do we
affect LeBron's legacy?
How does this affect Jack Golke's legacy? All right, as the QB carousel continues to spin, Pat. I mean, I forgot I have the thing, and I realized it last week, which I love. All right, with the QB carousel continuing to spin, we have not had any real new signings since the last time we spoke to you guys, but just some more rumblings. There was one piece of news, though, related to a quarterback that already signed, and Pat, the secrets have been revealed as far as Sam Darnold's contract goes, and it starts to make a lot more sense. Sam Darnold is basically playing on a 1-year deal as far as the money is concerned. It is masquerading as a 3-year deal, but the Seahawks can get out of it after the first year with essentially no dead money, no money owed. So it is basically 1 year, $35 million, and if Sam Darnold stinks, which he will, they can get out of it. So I am looking at this. I made a video about it because I think it's just, or no, I didn't. I made a tweet about it where I said, I think this is just having plausible deniability for what is going to be a tank season. Like, this is, guys, look, we're trying. We swear we signed a quarterback who made the playoffs, and we signed Cooper Kupp. He's a former Triple Crown receiver.
Spoilers.
When by the end, yeah, I know, we're talking about that. When by the end of the day, Sam Darnold is going to be pressured every 5 seconds and get bopped, and Cooper Kupp's going to be on IR by week 4. So, like, I just don't think this is an actual attempt at, like, shoring up their future. This feels like putting a Band-Aid on it, knowing they're probably going to be bad and getting ready to have a high draft pick in 2026.
But the thing is, there is that chance that it wasn't a fluke for Darnold. So it
There
feels
is,
like
but they'll
it's
be
like,
happy
it's
if
almost,
that's the case.
It's like it's almost going to work either way. Like you said, they can move on from him pretty easily and stink. Or if he looks really good, then hey, they made a great signing and they've got a guy for a few more years. But they've got a lot more to work on. But before we can really take a good look at how this team's going to be.
Yeah, I think it just makes more sense for them now in terms of this deal being a win-win, because I think the Seahawks are going to be bad. I don't think Sam Darnold is going to consistently perform behind a bad offensive line, and I don't know that Cooper Kupp is really going to make it through a full season. But now it makes sense, because if all those things happen, they're good. They're probably going to have a high draft pick, and if Sam Darnold proves me wrong and proves a lot of people wrong and proves that he is a changed man and a quarterback ready to lead an NFL franchise. He's only 27 years old still. Then great. I think that's a win for them as well, because they're paying him only, mid $30 million a year, which is great if they can get any sort of production like what he had in Minnesota. Moving on to the Giants, Pat. Jameis Winston is visiting the Giants as we kind of wait for some of these dominoes to fall with the Giants and, the Steelers, the Browns, the Titans, even the Vikings, I guess.
Aaron Rodgers.
Fucking Rodgers keep making us all wait. Hate that guy. Jameis Winston visited the Giants, and this is kind of teasing us for the ideal fantasy fit for Malik Neighbors. Brother, I will sacrifice small animals to whatever god you believe in, or volcano, or whatever needs to be done to get Jameis Winston on the Giants, because I want this man throwing the ball to Malik Neighbors until his arm falls off, or until Malik Neighbors wants to puke. Shout out CJ Spiller circa 2011. I want it so bad, Pat, but I hate that Rodgers is the holdup here, but God, give me Jameis on the Giants immediately, expeditiously.
Yeah, I think after Rodgers, Jameis is by far the best fantasy option. But the thing is, he's probably not the best. Well, he's just not the best real life option after Rodgers. So the question becomes, like, do they go with Russ? Do they go with fucking Joe Flacco they've talked to, or he's visited, something like that? So, like, But in terms of fun, hell yeah. Hell yeah, that team is going to be fucking awful. And who better to captain that ship of just a fucking dumpster fire than Jameis Winston? But like you said, all that matters with that team is Malik Neighbors going absolutely nuclear. And I think with Jameis, honestly, with mostly anybody, but with Jameis and Rodgers, you're looking at the best chance.
Look, if you're going to be ass, at least be fun. And the Giants are going to be ass, even if they draft a quarterback, they're going to be ass. Get Jameis, let him chuck the ball to Malik Neighbors. Let me get 18 catches for 230 yards and 2 touchdowns while the Giants lose, 46-14 or whatever the fuck it is. That's all I want out of this quarterback carousel. As far as Aaron Rodgers goes, who appears to be kind of holding up this whole process because once he signed, Aaron Rodgers is, for better or for worse, the most desirable quarterback option on the market for the teams that are really desperate for a quarterback. He's the best one. He was pretty good last year, despite how bad the Jets were. Statistically, Rodgers still has it. This is where we land with Rodgers right now. His odds of going to the Vikings have dipped considerably. As Ben Albright points out, there are polymarket odds that are keeping track of such things. And as of Sunday night, it saw a big spike in Rodgers to the Giants odds, while the Vikings odds dipped below even a retirement option. And again, Rodgers to the Vikings was already below Steelers and Giants, but it appears the odds of him going to the Vikings, at least in terms of the betting market, are getting even lower, which, thank God, I still don't understand why this is even on the table. Yeah. So it's nice to see this kind of align a little more with reality and expectation, and I think we can expect to see J.J. McCarthy as the Vikings starting quarterback next year.
Let's say we talked about this at length last week. Like, yeah, of course, Aaron Rodgers wants to go to the Vikings over these other teams.
I would
we
too.
Saw what the Vikings
hey,
just
Justin
did with
Jefferson's on that roster. I'd like to be there too.
Well, his buddy Aaron Jones is there. Like, we saw what that offense just did with Sam Darnold. Of course, he wants to go there. But we talked about for the Vikings, it makes absolutely no sense. And now I think the question is just going to be: does Aaron Rodgers want to play for the Giants, or does he want to sit in his dark mansion and go on McAfee once a week? I think, honestly, at that point, that's what we're looking at. I don't... Do you think that there's a good chance he could be with the Steelers if he wouldn't want to, like, picking the Steelers over the Giants? I just still don't know how him and Mike Tomlin would work, just because Mike Tomlin is just, like, such a hard ass who it does not seem like they would gel very well together, because Tomlin is just so no-nonsense.
Yeah, Mike Tomlin is a guy that seems to welcome these personalities, though. I mean, he intentionally drafts them at wide receiver. Granted, there's a difference between, like, having an insane ego and being, like, a little bit of a loose cannon, like what, George Pickens is, and what we didn't realize Antonio Brown was that in his prime, and maybe he wasn't. Maybe the CTE got to him, which, I mean, it certainly got to him, but we don't know what level of that he was behind the scenes before. But the Steelers have never been shy about drafting receivers with questionable, track records. So I feel like Mike Tomlin just kind of has this ego of, like, I can handle anyone and anything.
I can fix him.
I could fix him if it makes our football team better, and by better he means 10-7 at best again. I could see it. And especially with what the Steelers have done this offseason as far as, trading for DK Metcalf and having this kind of skill group, they need somebody to steer that ship. Obviously, DK Metcalf is theoretically going to be around for a while, so they don't necessarily, like, they're not going for it, right? Like, not fully. They're not like, oh, we're getting all these pieces and now we know what we're going to do at quarterback. So they could kind of wait it out and try to find a longer-term quarterback and, maybe not throw away the next year, but not have a great one with DK. At the same time, I don't know that they make that move without thinking they're going to have at least a solid quarterback coming into the year. And I don't know that guy is Mason Rudolph. So I feel like Tomlin should want Rodgers given their team comp, and then they can try to address quarterback of the future later on, because they're not in a draft spot to do that right now.
And they never will be because of them always making the playoffs somehow. God, I don't even remember oh wait, no. Was it like Devin Bush they took in the top 10?
What about that? Where's Duck Hodges? What's his deal?
For fuck's sake. Steelers top 10 picks. Let's see the last time. It says I've clicked this Wikipedia link before, so it must mean we've talked about this before.
Probably.
Unless I was just gooning on the Steelers draft picks one day.
Brand coverage sponsored by Alzheimer's.
Devin Bush in 2019 was their last top 10 pick, and their top 10 pick before that was Plaxico Burress in 2000. So this team is never bad enough to get a huge impact kind of player. You're going to have to trade up, man.
Yeah,
There are a lot of good picks here. A lot of yellow highlighted for Pro Bowlers and some Hall of Famers here. They have done a good job, though.
Eventually, they're going to have to chuck some assets and go up and get, an early pick for a quarterback because it just does not seem like they're going to get there themselves. And they're not building a team that is prepping them to get up there for next year either. Otherwise, they wouldn't have traded for DK Metcalf. It seems like they are just a team that wants to get as many bites at the playoff apple and hoping that eventually they are just able to put together a run. Like, I don't know if they think the NFL is March Madness and they're just hoping we can get a little hot streak together and, even if we have a decent team, like just get hot at the right time. But it seems like the Steelers are always cold at the right time or the wrong time. Like they always, in these barely over 500 seasons, they always seem to limp to the playoffs. I also remember the season that they started 11-0 and we remembered that they weren't as good as that. We were like, how the fuck are these guys 11-0? It was like the least passing of the eye test season ever, and then they ended up falling apart. Same thing happened this past year. They started, I think, 4-2 with Justin Fields. They looked pretty good. Russ came in. They somehow looked even better, and then they tailed off right at the end of the year. So the Steelers, man, they're a weird franchise. But again, I think the best solution in the short term would be Aaron Rodgers. I hope he just gets the fuck over himself, because like the reports are that he's dragging his feet as far as the Giants and Steelers go. He's like trying to wait out the Vikings wanting him. He's
He
trying
wants to
like
be the center of attention.
I know, but he's also like he wants the Vikings to like be more interested in him, and I'm like, buddy, you don't always get to go where you want to go. Fuck you. Yeah, who want me?
Who want me?
No. So I hope he's either nowhere or the Steelers just for the good of the NFL. But we'll see what happens with Aaron Rodgers and the rest of the quarterback carousel. Russell Wilson is just going to have to be patient because he is just the side chick in this whole scenario. He's good enough that he should start for one of these, 4 teams that really need a quarterback. As I look over my shoulder because I have all the openings next to me. But he's not good enough to be the priority over Rodgers. So if any of these teams think they're still in on Rodgers, they're going to keep waiting. And Rodgers loves that. He loves
If Rodgers decides to retire, though, the Steelers and Giants are going to be fighting over him like crazy, though.
2 homeless guys fighting over a block of cheese.
Yes.
That's basically the Family Guy segment. All right, back to the receivers because we did have another receiver going to a destination finally, Pat. Cooper Kupp going home to Washington State, Seattle, the Seahawks. We mentioned, obviously, as we talked about Sam Darnold, but again, I must ask, what the fuck are the Seahawks doing? Why are they so weird? Why are they like this? I don't understand what's going on. Because what do you make of this move? What was your first reaction when you saw Cooper Kupp out of all these openings, all these teams that are even better positioned to make playoff runs and really needed a reliable target, and you see he's going to the Seahawks, who are just the weirdest team in football right now.
Even when it was narrowed down to the finalists, it was like Seattle. It's like, what are they doing there? You had the thought, we're like, Washington kid. Again, if we're talking like in a vacuum, a football move, like, yeah, Cooper Kupp can still be a really solid player. Because we're really going to see JSN step into the limelight here. So having that kind of security blanket like Cooper Kupp, is there a better security blanket type player the last handful of years than Cooper Kupp? There's not many of them.
It's him and Travis Kelce. That's about it.
So like in theory, like, yeah, it's a good move, but I think the issue here is, one, his health, and again, a lot of, these weird, more ticky-tacky injuries that just kind of keep you out for a few weeks here and there. It's like, is how available is Cooper Kupp going to be? But again, similarly to what we talked about last week, it's just like, what is this team's direction is the big thing here. It's like, you mentioned the possible tankathon. It's like, they wouldn't go and get Cooper Kupp if they weren't trying to tank. Because again, you could say like, oh, they're trying to keep up the facade that they're competing. But again, Cooper Kupp is going to help you compete.
Yeah, as long as he's one of those.
It's not like they signed DeAndre Hopkins, where it's like, ooh, that's a shiny name that people know, even though he's not going to.
They're signing Michael Thomas next.
Exactly, like it's that's again the big thing in terms of football. Like, yeah, I think Kupp will work. I think that obviously this does hurt Jackson Smith and Jigba's fantasy stock, but did anybody really think he was going to be the only guy worth anything once the season started?
I think the weirder part to me about the fit and also the more upsetting part about JSN's fantasy outlook is that these are such similar players. Like, JSN was able to thrive so much last year as kind of the underneath, shorter yardage guy complementing DK Metcalf. He's not a run a go route every play type of guy like DK Metcalf was. And so it was a great combination. They worked very well together. You have two guys now who kind of both play very similarly. So now we not only don't know, exactly how many targets JSN's going to get. He's going to be the target leader on the Seahawks. I have no doubt about that. But even on a per game basis, like while Kupp's healthy, but it's more about he's going to be getting very similar targets, one would think, to Cooper Kupp because they have such similar skill sets. I was expecting more of a deep threat guy to go to Seattle, if anybody. And they were going to get somebody, obviously, because they weren't going to roll into the season with just Jake Bobo and MVS outside of JSN. But I expected, and I guess maybe they're expecting MVS to fill this role, but I expected more of like a Darius Slayton type, somebody that's going to stretch the field, not such a redundant skill set to JSN, at least not assigning, good money to a redundant skill set to JSN. So it's a little interesting to me. I don't know quite why they did it. It definitely dampens the JSN upside that we were kind of dreaming of as soon as they got rid of DK Metcalf. Still going to be a good fantasy play, I think. Sam Darnold is, for all of his issues, not bad at supporting fantasy wide receivers, especially when they are the clear best one on their team. But yeah, I think it's just going to make for a lot more like down weeks than we expected, because it is just kind of a weird fit. And I would have liked to see a better fit for like Cooper Kupp's late career outlook as well. I'm not particularly interested in Cooper Kupp in Seattle. Like I would have been a lot more interested in Cooper Kupp in shocker, I'm going to say this, New England, a team that really needs Denver, a team that really needs a guy that, like, maybe he will only play half the season, but in those games, they're going to funnel the ball through him. That's not going to happen in Seattle consistently. So I don't know. It's an odd fit to me.
I think even a situation like Dallas would have been a lot better for Kupp.
Yeah,
so
I would agree. Playing alongside CeeDee Lamb, that would have been great. So yeah, this is very much a what are they building in there kind of situation, because as much as I joke about like the Seahawks having this we're fake competing thing, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I don't think they actually want to go in and go 1-16 or whatever the fuck, but like I can't, the reason I make that joke is because I can't see the vision. I don't know what the vision is, and I don't agree with the vision, and I don't think it's going to work out for them. But hey, maybe they'll prove me wrong. I like Clint Kubiak, so maybe he's got a plan here, but it is still a very weird move. Speaking of, I guess this isn't a weird move, but an unexpected one that kind of popped up out of nowhere. The Vikings, Pat, traded for Jordan Mason. So the 49er backfield now becomes Christian McCaffrey, Isaac Guerrero, and Patrick Taylor. Kind of unclogs it a little bit with Elijah Mitchell obviously going to the Chiefs a couple weeks back, and now Jordan Mason going to the Vikings. What are our fantasy takeaways for this? Because we suddenly have more competition for Aaron Jones and less clutter in the 49er backfield. What was your first sort of takeaway when you saw this move go down?
I think my first sort of takeaway is that even though Aaron Jones, I don't believe Jones missed any games last year, did he? But he had a lot of injuries where it was like
Aaron Jones lives on the injury report.
Well, that's what I mean. Like so many,
but yes, he was mostly healthy last year.
Will he or won't he situations, but we've seen him not be prolifically healthy throughout his career, and I think they just wanted a better insurance policy than what they've had with Ty Chandler, who, like, I know you in particular have wanted him to be.
Ty Chandler is the best running back in football, and one day the people will see it.
And I think they just wanted a better player. So if Jones goes down, we saw Mason be really good here, and obviously it's in San Francisco. You've got to look at everything from that lens. But yeah, I just think you're looking at an aging, oft-injured running back, and now you've got a young running back behind him, where if he goes down, you've got a talent. It's not going to be that big of a talent drop-off.
Yeah, it's a low investment move. It's a guy, look, Jordan Mason's got to be thrilled because sometimes you just draw the lucky straw as a player where you just find yourself going from good offense to good offense to good offense. Going from the 49ers Shanahan offense to Kevin O'Connell in Minnesota is a pretty nice transition to make. And Jordan Mason certainly becomes one of the most premium, sort of fantasy handcuffs as far as Aaron Jones and his health is concerned, like you said. I think the other big takeaway here is, and I won't take credit for this sort of revelation, but I certainly agreed with it because I saw it on Twitter or X or whatever the fuck. Kyle Shanahan, I think, wants a running back. I definitely agree with that sentiment. We've talked for a few weeks now about how strong of a running back class this is. Christian McCaffrey has had injury issues now again pop up, pretty serious ones this past season. So his health is going to be a question mark for the rest of his career in San Francisco. Isaac Guerrero was pretty solid last year, but we know the 49ers like to have several good running backs, and Isaac Guerrero, I think, was like a 5th round pick.
Fourth round pick.
I was
pick. About to say, yeah.
And I could very much see Shanahan spending a 2nd round pick on a running back that he thinks is going to be a major contributor for this team. And that's going to be a real interesting one to watch for fantasy if it materializes, because obviously, you have Christian McCaffrey ahead of you, but how much of Christian McCaffrey are we really going to get here in the, I don't want to say last few years of his career, but Christian McCaffrey, for all the injuries he dealt with early in his career, now he's going to be 29 at the start of next year, and after the double, tendinitis that he dealt with last year, it's definitely not trending the right way. If I had to guess, though, I do think that is where this is heading, is that they got rid of Jordan Mason because they want to get a sort of higher draft capital, higher pedigree running back in this room. More toys for Shanny to play with would be my guess.
But yeah, like another Tyrion Davis-Price in the 2nd round here to really shore things up.
Tyrion Davis-Price just really gets the loins tingling. We got to get another one.
But yes, I agree with your sentiment. Isaac Guerrero looked good in the small sample size. At the end of the day, not much draft capital put into him in a weaker running back class compared to this. I would not be surprised at all if that's where they go.
No, absolutely not. Some other signings just to catch up on here from the last couple days. Derek Stingley signed a 3-year, $90 million contract extension with the Texans, resetting the market again at the cornerback position this time. So corners, Pat, can make good money now, which is good to see.
Parents, send your kids to LSU if they play football.
I'm sure they would if they could. If they get an offer from there, they're probably going there for the most part. Go Tigers! But yeah, seriously, there's been so much money given to LSU players. Also, I mean, Pat, this has to be great news for Travis Hunter as well. He's probably sitting there wondering, do I get to get Jamar Chase's $40 million and Stingley's $30 million if I'm really good in the NFL, or how does that work?
Well, here's the thing. If he's that good on both sides of the ball, then yes, he does deserve the.
I mean, that's basically what Ohtani got, doesn't he? Yeah, getting like $70 million a year. So yeah, I think it makes sense. Lane Johnson got an extra 1 year, $25 million added onto his deal with the Eagles. So the Eagles continue to just try to keep together and, rightfully compensate this core that just got them a Super Bowl. So good for Lane Johnson and good for the Eagles. The Eagles did lose a different lineman, though, who they were expecting to lose, but we now know his destination. Mekhi Becton going to the Chargers on a 2-year, $20 million deal. Beautiful signing here. He is expected to continue playing guard where he thrived last year with Philly. He is the biggest guard of literal all time in the NFL, and this is great for the Chargers run game and for Najee Harris, who we talked up last week.
Yeah, for Mekhi Becton specifically, with all the injuries he went through and just seeming like a flame-out bust, he's really turned his career around here. And, sometimes it takes a position change, and now you're going to go to an offense where they just run. Great signing.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the 49ers, Pat, brought back Kyle Juszczyk. He was one of the casualties of just the Niners offseason as a whole. They ended up cutting him. Turned out they just wanted to rework the deal, I guess, because he is back on a 2-year, $8 million deal, which he was the one release that was like truly baffling. I was like, why would you get rid of him? You use him all the time. And yeah, turns out this was just what it was.
We don't need to go into a lengthy discussion about this because it just with the fullback position, it's going to be a really interesting Hall of Fame case for Kyle Juszczyk. Just because, yes, he has undoubtedly been the best fullback in the league for the last decade. Have there been any other fullbacks in the last decade? So I think that
8. At any given time, there's like 8.
We don't need to talk about this at length, but it'll just be interesting to see because in terms of him being elite at his position, yes, it's just, does anyone give a fuck about fullbacks? That's not me anymore.
The Jakob Johnson disrespect.
He just signed somewhere, didn't he?
He did just sign. Where did he sign?
Dolphins? No.
Texans, I think. I think he signed with the Texans, which is very funny.
Yes, he did.
Which is very funny because I remember reading something from our boy Andrew Cooper, Coupe Fiasco, the tight end guru. But he's also a bit of a fullback aficionado as well. And he made the point that like Bobby Slowick had his best years when he had a fullback. And then they got rid of the fullback for him last year. And then they were like, hey, why'd you suck so bad? And now that he's gone, they're bringing in a different fullback. So just kind of funny process there for the Texans. Hopefully they can figure it out because they have no line. Maybe they're just going to convert him to fucking left tackle to replace Larry Tunsil. All right, folks. That catches us up on all of our NFL news. We are now moving over to the March Madness section of the show. I should have downloaded the but that's good enough.
Is there a better sound than that? Like, let's be honest.
Literally no. It is that Pat, there are very few things that like fill me with the joy of like what you used to feel on Christmas as like a little kid. The March Madness everything is the closest we get in adulthood. It is so good, it's unbelievable.
I used to be like so into it when I was a little younger, like when I was in high school, college, and I'm not as into it now, but even still hearing that music of the selection show, it still got the jitters going, even though I was fully into it. It's the best. Like, as someone who's not as big of a college football fan, Jesus Christ, college basketball fan, my ass is going to be planted at 12:30 on Thursday, just ready for mayhem. Let's do it.
Mine will as well, and I'm going to a pod of games here in Denver because Texas A&M is coming here, so we're going to see A&M Yale and then Michigan versus UC San Diego, so that's going to be a good time.
I'd like to point out, if Central won their conference, they would have absolutely been the 15 seed in Providence, the only destination that I could have attended, and it is even more heartbreaking. They would have certainly given them the 15 seed in Providence against St. John's. They would have gotten their absolute doors blown off, but I don't care, and that is just another punch square in the nuts.
Yeah, well, maybe don't lose to St. Francis, who is playing right now as we record. How are they doing?
That's right. I forgot. Is
They
North
are
Carolina tonight, right?
North Carolina is right after that, yeah. St. Francis is up 3 with 8 minutes left. Wow. I mean, they already have
flashes.
They already have a lot more points than they did the entire game against CCSU with 8:30 left in the game. So shout out to them, I guess. Pat, immediate takeaways about the bracket. How are we feeling? Is there any team that catches your eye that you really like? We'll get into our upset, seeds draft in a little bit, but just wanted to get a feel for the bracket overall in the tournament this year.
I've got to preach to the choir here. What the goddamn hell is North Carolina doing in this tournament?
Yeah,
like
pretty bad.
Not to dogpile, but it's like
committee.
they
this
played
is for you.
They played a hard schedule. They didn't win any of the fucking games. Like, are we just gonna reward teams now for scheduling hard teams in the non-conference? Literally, had they win 2 more of those games, if they're 3 and 9. Different story. They won 1 quad 1 game. And I think the biggest thing now is it's just going to expose this hypocrisy in the committee. They all talk about quad 1, quad 1, quad 1. You clearly don't value the quad 1 if you're gonna leave North Carolina out when all these other teams say, oh, this team had this quad 1 win. North Carolina didn't do shit in quad 1. And again, all those teams in the bubble, they stink. They don't stink, but like Texas, Xavier, Indiana, West Virginia, all those teams that were right there on the bubble, none of them were great basketball teams. And, not to bring up the conspiracy theory of the fact that their AD was the chair of the committee.
I think it's a conspiracy theory. I think it's valid. It's fair.
And they say that, he wasn't in the room. And I believe that. I believe he was not in the room. But you are going to tell me that his buddies on the committee took none of that into account. That they completely disregarded that this guy was the head of their committee. They were just looking at North Carolina. I don't believe that. Yeah. I believe that whether it was subconscious or a conscious effort, that is him being the head of the committee is why. Is at least part of the reason why they get it. That said, I think there's a good chance they get to the fucking Sweet 16 if they win.
I do too, and that's the worst part. And that's a case where you need to not think that results negate the process. Like, they deserve to get in because they ultimately made a run. That's not how that goes. Like, anybody can make a run when they get in. It doesn't mean you deserve to have the chance to. So it's just a little silly.
Remember when Syracuse got in somehow as like a 10 seed that one year and
Yes.
then made the
Oh,
Elite Eight?
I don't think I've ever been more mad in a tournament than
And
I
I
was at
had
that
them
one.
going to the Sweet 16 that year because I remember being like, how did they get a 10 seed, let alone in the tournament? And I'm like, that said, they're going to win 2 games. And like North Carolina, if they win tonight, I damn well think I'm going to have them win in 2 games.
And there's also the part of it that, like, you know, the virtue of them getting in when they don't deserve to is going to fire them up as a team, which is going to be what sparks a run if there is one. Because
It's just basically another opportunity, to get that spark.
You know their coach, you know everybody in that roster is like, they're all saying we don't deserve to be here. We'll go fucking show them why we deserve. And like that's just a sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy in itself. But yeah, absolutely, North Carolina did not deserve to get in. West Virginia and their fan base rightfully angry, and now West Virginia's probably going to lose their coach because it sounds like Darian DeVries is going
he's
to
gone.
Indiana.
He's
Is
gone.
he officially gone? Is he already gone?
Someone reported that, I think.
Okay.
I think,
Yeah, so-
what's the guy's name? Whatever, yeah.
Yeah, so
ESPN guy.
he's headed to Indiana. So just a rough, 48 hours here for West Virginia fans. It is a tough one. My main takeaway from the bracket is, one, the West region is a hellhole. It's the one Yukon is in, but like that's not why I'm like butthurt about it or anything, because last year I said Yukon was in a really tough region too. That is continuing this year for whatever reason, but we are just not the priority in this region this year. But this is a region with Florida, who I think has been the best team in the sport for the last couple weeks or so. You've got St. John's, who is the best defensive team in the country, literally. Maryland, the Crab Five, has been one of the hottest teams in the country. Who else we got in here? Texas Tech, one of the hotter teams in the country. You got Kansas versus Arkansas in the first round, 2 of the best coaches in the sport. You got Yukon, unironically, despite the deficiencies this year, like you have the defending 2-time national champions in the same bracket.
there.
It's ridiculous. It is insanely stacked. And I'm not complaining because I'm not saying we should have an easy road after the season we put together. It's just crazy from me trying to put together my bracket perspective to see all these. I would have probably had 4 of these teams in my final 4 if I could have, if they were arranged differently.
I love St. John. Like, I fucking hate Rick Pitino. Like, he's my new Jim Boeheim in terms of just, like, I just don't like the guy. What he's done there is been absolutely remarkable in how they are so good defensively, and yet they're not that great offensively, but the way they do it where they just don't shoot threes, and when they do, they don't make them. Just their ability to get, really high percentage looks is just almost inexplicable. It's almost inexplicable, and I love them, and I want to pick them to, get really, really far. It's like they got to run into a fucking buzzsaw in the Elite Eight potentially in Florida, just like how good Florida has been in at least the best conference of my lifetime. Like everyone always talks about when Yukon won the championship as the 9 seed in the Big East. This SEC is better than that. Like this SEC, SEC, everyone's like, there should never be 14 teams from one conference in the tournament. Yes, there should. Yeah,
when they're this good,
These teams in the SEC, they beat the fuck out of each other. That's why it's so hard picking those games, because you're like, oh, this team beat this team that's really good,
right?
But this team beat this team, and that team. It's just
trying to measure them up is tough.
It's like the Always Sunny scene with all the the papers and the arrows, where it's like, it's just so hard to judge that. But yeah, UConn. I figured they were going to be a very popular pick over the 1 seed. I do not
with
believe,
this 1 seed.
I do not believe that that's going to be the case anymore. I don't think many people are gonna, which is why I was gonna pick Oklahoma, just to like kind of go against the grain. But the fact that they're gonna get their doors blown off by Florida if they get there, might as well pick them. And root for them.
Yeah, I was really hoping that UConn would draw Duke in the second round, not because I think Duke is like a fraudulent 1 seed or anything like that, but just because the hope that, Cooper Flagg may not be fully healthy yet by that point, by the first weekend. He's going to play in the NCAA tournament, but, ankle very well may not be 100% yet until the second weekend. So I was hoping maybe we could get, a gimpy Duke team. But if not, at least I was going to be able to just have that insane sort of rooting interest because of the fact that it's Duke. Like, I hate Duke. I've always hated Duke. And for better or for worse, for better for us, Duke UConn has had Duke's number, like in historic situations and in big games. So like, I would have just loved to see how that played out, if that was in their head at all, anything like that. And it was more of a, if we are to go down, at least it will be to a team. If it is a real Duke team, then great. But I wanted to have the chance just to see what happened there. Yeah, as far as my outlook for UConn, Florida's the worst case scenario. And this is, again, if we get by Oklahoma, obviously. Florida's worst case scenario, I've had Florida penciled in as my national champion for probably 2 weeks. And to see us get this draw sucks. It does at least create a bit of a win-win, because I'm going to have Florida going pretty far. And if they get knocked out by UConn, oh darn, I'm not really going to be too upset about that. But this is a brutal draw, knowing what our weaknesses are as a team, knowing the depth that Florida has. Should our bigs get into any foul trouble, which that tends to happen.
What do you mean should?
If anybody gets into foul trouble, like Florida just kind of rotates these guys all game long. UConn has 6.5 playable players on the roster at this point. Like, it's
get ready
it's
to
pretty
learn
bad.
Yusuf Singari, buddy.
I was saying the same thing. I was like, Florida's just going to be throwing 8 different bigs at us, and we're going to need to have Yusuf Singar out there, and it's not going to be a good scene. With that said, it's March Madness. Anything can happen. UConn is the 14th best offense in the country per KenPom. And on a game-by-game basis, Pat, it's possible. Obviously, it's possible. And I'm going to let myself be delusional should we get the opportunity to play Florida if we are able to beat Oklahoma. But Oklahoma's no pushover either. So all told, my prediction is that UConn does not three-peat. That is, unfortunately, I know it's a very shocking revelation we've made here on the Brand Coverage Podcast. But if we do, Pat, if we do, I'm going to be insufferable. I'm going to be the worst person you've ever dealt with in your life.
Warranted. That's warranted.
Yeah, I know. Well, especially because all of the historic KenPom references for who can win national champions, they're already like, you have to fit this or this unless you were UConn. Because we already did this back in 2014, where it was a team that heading in had no business, it seemed like, of winning a national championship, and they fucking did it. So we're already the one exception to every analytical model that people point to. It would be utterly hilarious if we did it again as the 94th ranked KenPom defense, nowhere near an analytical option to win a national championship.
See, I'm not even thinking of it as an if. Even if they were in Houston's region or whoever's region, it's just not happening. And the thing is, that's okay. You win the championship for 2 years and then everything is disappointment. It's this is what most programs deal with on a yearly basis.
Yeah.
And by deal with, I mean just kind of live with, because it's not bad. They didn't have a bad year. It's just a bad year in context. But no, they are nothing close to a championship team. Even that 2014 team that kind of pulled off the improbable had a better roster than this.
Yeah.
So, like I said, hopefully they can just beat Oklahoma and say they get a win here. At least if they lose, I can say that they won as many games as Central did in the tournament. So,
making it already qualifies us a little bit better.
No, not my criteria.
Is Central playing in any sort of postseason tournament? Are you in the...
Do you think they have the money to go anywhere? They got invited to the CBI last year, and they didn't have the funds. It's
really?
unfortunate.
Oh, damn.
No.
Well, tough scene.
And I'm sure it happened again this year, if I had to guess.
All right. Let's get into our underdogs draft, Pat, and then after that, we'll give a little Final Four prediction if we have the time. We'll make sure we have the time. But here's what we're going to do for this. Underdogs draft, Pat persuaded me to allow for 11 seeds or worse in this draft.
That's an upset.
I think,
11 over 6.
Yeah, it is. So we are going to go back and forth drafting teams who are 11 seeds or worse with the goal of us putting together the better squad of 5 teams and seeing how many wins they can rack up in the NCAA tournament. So we'll see here. Pat, do you want the first pick?
It's
I'll
me.
just give it. It's you.
You did
Okay,
go first last time
take the
anyway,
first
so
pick here.
I
Which
did-
11 seed or
I did
worse are you
check.
hoping gets a win here?
Before we got roasted by our friend Brett, he goes, every time you do a draft, it's just, I don't know whose pick it is.
Yeah,
And I'm
well,
like,
we
it's
don't
my
check.
turn this time. I think I'm going with this team here just because I think that they have the biggest advantage, that they're red hot, and the team they're playing could be missing 2 of their best
I know where
players.
you're
I'm
going
going
with
Colorado State here first.
Should be the
And
consensus
I think they're going to
number
be. I think they're going to be a really popular pick against Memphis, and people can just say like, oh, how good can Memphis be in the American, blah, blah, blah. That's not the reason. They're a really good team. It's just the fact that Tyrese Hunter, who knows if he plays, Dante Harris hasn't played most of this month either. It's like, if you're missing one or both of these guys against a really good, really hot Colorado State team that might have played their way in as an at-large, potentially even without winning the Mountain West, and a good Mountain West at that, it just seems like the most logistically obvious pick here.
Well, it's definitely the most logistically obvious because I know that Colorado State is favored in this game by the point spread.
I did not see that.
No, I know. And either way, it's a valid pick. I think as far as the 12/5 goes, that is extremely obvious as a first consensus number one in this draft. That was who I was going to take if I had the first overall pick. So definitely understand the Colorado State pick there. I am looking up and down this board, and
you're looking it up and down.
I've kind of faded some of the more popular picks in my bracket. One of them, and this is partial bias because of my Texas A&M association now with my fiance having gone there, but the Yale thing to me is getting insane. They did it last year. I just don't expect Lightning to strike twice for Yale. They're a good team. Don't get me wrong. John Poulikitis is still a monster. They're going to shoot threes on A&M. I just don't see them doing this 2 years in a row. So I'm going to fade, them as one of the more popular picks.
I haven't thought about them much.
Fair. Connecticut stand up still. I'm going to pick for this draft, Pat, a team that I'm not picking in my bracket, but it's the one that I acknowledge has probably the best chance, and it's UC San Diego. Mm-hmm. They are the 12 seed going up against Michigan by a lot of different metrics, very similar, not constructed teams, but like similarly talented teams. I'm going with them. Aniwa Tate Jones, incredible name. This team will shoot threes on you. They are just a very well-rounded team. I'm going to go with them because I think if they beat Michigan, they can go on a little run here, and they've been kind of one of the mid-majors I've been really having my eye on the last few weeks. I think it'd be irresponsible for me to leave them for you on the board here.
Yeah, they've absolutely got to be mentioned here. At the moment, I do have them winning one. But the thing I hate is just that Michigan is red hot. Well, they go out and win the Big Ten tourney, and it's like I wish they were playing Memphis. I wish they were playing another one of these more. It's just, of course, it has to be Michigan there. Like I said, I have them at the moment. I don't know if that stands. But that's a really good team, and I obviously will never need to know, but I just hope to God they would have made it if they didn't win the Big West, because they absolutely deserved it, and I just know they would have gotten fucked, and I'm mad thinking about it.
That's fair. This matchup reminds me a lot of a couple years ago, I think it maybe 2 years ago, where it was last year. It was Oral Roberts versus Duke. Oral Roberts was a 12 seed, Duke was a 5 seed, and I remember heading into that tournament being like, I want to pick Oral Roberts to win a game. They're awesome. They're fun. And then I saw what the draw was, and I was like,
yep,
fuck. And that's how I feel about my actual bracket. And that's why I have Michigan going further, because I want to have them winning a few games. But again, I acknowledge the fact that I had to do a lot of research just to figure out who I thought was going to win this. So I'm going to take the team that, even though my bracket ended up on the other end of this coin flip, I'm going to take UC San Diego, because if they make a run, I don't want to miss out on it for this little friendly competition we have going here.
Okay, this is tough because I want to pick a lot of these teams.
Yeah, 4 more picks left for each, so let's lock in here.
Let's lock in here. I'm going VCU here. I'll go with the 11 seed over the 6 seed BYU. BYU is just known for offense. And VCU, even going back to their 2011 run, how long ago that was, they have always been about defense, no matter who the head coach is. So it's one of these cases that it seems we have every year. It's like unstoppable offense against unstoppable defense. Yep. It's like, who prevails here? And I think it would be more likely, in a sense, that BYU could have an off day offensively than VCU really just laying an egg and BYU popping off. I mean, that could happen. They're a great offensive team here. But I think there's at least, a good chance VCU having, such a strong ability on their side. I think they're, I have them only going one. But
that's fair. I like that pick. I'm picking VCU to beat BYU as well. So that is a completely understandable pick there. Let's see here where I want to go next. There is one region where I have I feel like this happens every year. There's always one region where I have the 12 facing the 13 in the second round, and I'm never right
don't
about
do that
it.
anymore.
It always happens in a region. I never pick the right one. But this is a region where that is happening, and Pat, fuck it. I am going to pick one of them right now in this draft. I'm going with the 13th seeded Akron Zips, baby.
You dick!
We are going with Akron over Arizona. Now, how have I settled on the Akron Zips? It is because, folks, what ends up blitzing teams in March? It is the three-pointer. And let me tell you what Akron's really good at. They are 8th in the country in three-pointers attempted. They are 6th in the country in three-pointers made per game. Their pace is out of this world. They have been a fun team all year. Nate Johnson's a monster. I am going with the Akron Zips, especially against an Arizona team that I feel like more often than not disappoints. I have a recent memory, obviously, of them losing to Princeton a couple years ago. I think things just kind of line up here for this one to happen, and I want to have a three-point shooting team, going deep in my bracket, not deep in my bracket, but to have a big upset in my bracket because, man, it's just fucking fun. It's just fun. I'm going with the Zips, baby.
Okay. I'm going to go with another very good three-point shooting team from the East region. Give me their potential dancing partners, the Liberty Flames.
Fuck. Yeah, that's the other one I have.
Going here. When you started talking about that region, I'm like, if you pick Liberty. I liked Akron, too.
Liberty Bibberty. Yep.
Liberty Bibberty. It's pronounced Bibberty. But... Not only the 6th best three-point shooting team in the country this year, but they're also a good defensive team. This pick for me is more about Liberty and not in the sense of like, Oregon's
not about
kind
Liberty.
I almost just said a sitting duck, which would have been a horrible accidental pun. But not to say that Oregon's not a good team or not. It's more from Liberty's perspective. The combination of defense and three-point shooting. I saw a stat here. I still have it pulled up on one of my gazillion tabs here. They're 25-0 when holding teams below 70 points this year.
Wow. Okay. Pretty solid.
Is that right? That can't be right. Liberty, if I got
Bibberty.
lied to by
Bibberty? That's probably
Liberty.
right. I mean, that's probably all their wins are probably just holding.
Well, I was
going to
say, yeah. I mean,
points.
they did win.
Makes
I believe
sense.
they did win that many games. Yeah, the 28-6.
Pardon us as we our researcher
Oh,
gets
yeah.
on this. Our researcher,
Pretty much.
us.
I'm taking a quick glance down their schedule. That seems to be correct. But either way, if they hold you below 70, they're going to win the damn game. So let's have some fun here. I don't know if I have the balls to pick Akron to go with them here. But if I were to pick Akron to go with them, I would have Liberty going to the Sweet 16.
I love it. I love it. All right. Oh, they also have a guy who's like 5'10", which is awesome, and he's been like their best player for the last several games.
Remember
I think he's averaging like
Chris
20.
Clemens from Campbell?
Oh, I do. He's like
was
one
like
of the leading scorers ever in like the nation. I think he's still like top 5
he
in
poked
points.
around the G League for a while too.
God, good for him.
Yeah.
Man, March legends, man. And that's I'm looking for the teams that have the March legends too, and I think that is kind of inspiring this next pick, Pat. Look, I'm getting freaky. All right, I've taken a 12 seed. I've taken a 13 seed. Let's mix in a 14 seed and let's get crazy, Pat. Let's get fucking crazy because it happens. It happens all the time. In fact, I don't think I'm going to pick a 15 or a 16 here, but the last few years, Pat, it's like a 50% chance that a 15 or a 16, one of them is going to win in a bracket. So these upsets are not insane. It's been 14 over 3, even less insane. Pat,
You're doing it.
What am I doing? What do you think I'm doing?
Oh, I thought you were going to go Wofford.
Oh, I am not going Wofford.
Okay.
I am actually currently looking up what this team's mascot is because I don't know and I want to get it right.
Wait, let's see if I know the 14 seeds mascots. If you're picking Lipscomb, they are the Titans? Tritons? I don't know.
They're the Bisons, and I'm picking the Lipscomb Bisons, baby. Lipscomb is taking down Iowa State and TJ Hoxelberger.
All I know
not
is
his name.
they are from Nashville. Because when you and I were both in Nashville for the same convention, they had a game against North Florida, and we were sitting right next to North Florida in the airport.
Amazing.
Getting ready to leave.
Incredible. I am going with Lipscomb. Iowa State is banged up, and Lipscomb has a player who I can just fucking see it. I can just fucking smell it, Pat. Jacob Agniasevich. He is averaging 20 points, 8 rebounds, and 1 assist per game. He was injured all of last year. He is also playing this regional game very, very close to his hometown. He is from Sheboygan, Wisconsin. I don't have in front of me exactly where this regional is being held, but I read that it was driving distance from where he grew up. So
let's see. They are in. It doesn't say here on this bracket.
Let's see. I've got it here. Yeah, it's in Milwaukee. Lipscomb versus Iowa State. So, Pat, it just makes so much sense. I just don't care about Iowa State. That's part of it. And Lipscomb is red hot. And I'm ready to fucking ride the bison here. We are going all the way. We are taking out Iowa State. Fuck them. Fuck them is my message. Go Lipscomb. Go Lipscomb.
Okay. Not a thing I thought about. Of course, it's going to be some doofy white guy with a funny name like fucking
Jacob Agniachevich. He's going
Ali
nuts.
Farokmanesh. What was the other? Jesperson, the other Northern Iowa guy. It's crazy that there's 2 Northern Iowa guys to bring up here.
There was Seth Tuttle, I think, played at Northern Iowa, and he was fucking awesome too.
What about our boy, our friend Dan here? Gleefully tabbed Cameron Krutwig as Big Ugly when he was a freshman before he was anything.
Yep.
So like when he was good, it kind of felt like one of those like I was on it first. Like we were on Big Ugly first. What a legend too. Okay, all right. So 2 more picks here each, correct?
Yep. Or you get 3 more. You've only made 2. Colorado State and VCU.
I took Liberty as well.
Oh, you took Liberty. I didn't write it down. You're right. Go ahead.
All right. So 2 more picks here. Since they expanded the field to 68 teams, a play-in team has won in all but 1 year.
Mount St. Mary's pick incoming.
I believe not those ones. Rest in peace to the NEC Mountaineers there. Honestly, I think that either North Carolina or Texas has a good shot here. Either one to be this team because like they're in for a reason. I mean, at least Texas, they won some big games in just a brutal SEC. And you look at who they're playing, Illinois, and in Ole Miss on the other side there. Ole Miss seems to be one of those high variance teams. I want to go Texas just because everyone is probably going to go North Carolina. I'll stick with North Carolina here because, like you said, it's that kind of situation where it seems like there's always a team where it's like, how the fuck did they get here? Winning a game or 2. And again, this is a team. Hubert Davis has coached a team far in the tournament before. They've got a lot of talented players. It's just they couldn't beat anyone that fucking mattered. And so, does Ole Miss matter? Yes, they do.
So how are we scoring this? Do you also have the rights to San Diego State should they come out on top tonight? I'm willing to give you that. I mean,
I would say no.
Okay, fair enough. So Pat is taking a risk here. He could be losing one of these teams tonight.
That's fine.
But you also don't get a point from tonight because, I mean, fucking it's the first one.
I know exactly what I'm doing.
All right.
Yep.
All right, Pat willingly getting a little risky here. I like it.
A little freaky.
A little freaky, hot,
get crazy,
sexy.
Get wild, get party.
Man. All right. We're running out of teams that I actually want to fucking pick.
Yeah, I've seen one.
I will. What do I want to do here? I'm going to take a very common upset pick and one that I kind of thought you would have taken way earlier. I'm taking Drake. Pat told me get ready to learn Drake, buddy. I'm honestly undecided as far as what I'm doing with them in Missouri in my bracket, just because I know nothing about Missouri except their Ken Pom rankings, which is that offensively they're 5th and defensively they're 73rd. So I don't know really what to make of that. All I know is I'd like to see them face fucking St. John's just to be the exact opposite of each other. But I'm going to go with Drake. I don't know how much longer we're going to wait for Drake to actually make a fucking run, Pat, because it feels like it's been every single year we've been wanting Drake to go deep in the tournament. Now, the completely different team now, different coach, different, players and all that, because they used to have Darian and Tucker DeVries on this team, but now they have gone to West Virginia, and then now Darian is leaving
Indiana. Tucker's going with it. Come on.
But does Tucker have any fucking eligibility left?
It seems somebody said get ready to learn Bloomington, buddy. So
oh my god. Yeah, great. Tucker DeVries is going to be 32 playing for fucking Indiana.
Perry Ellis looking at.
But Drake now coached by Ben McCollum. Their best player, Bennett Sturtz, coming up with him from his last school. I am going to go with Drake just because I think they have a good chance to beat Missouri, and this feels like probably my best chance to actually get, a more reasonable upset team on my board here. So I'll go with Drake.
Okay, I don't want to go Texas here or Xavier for my last pick just because I can't have two of my teams potentially not even reaching. We talked about Yale. Yale's been a very popular pick. Will Wade and McNeese, back in the tournament again. Clemson's a team I like a good bit, actually, so I don't think I want to go there.
I like
High
Clemson,
Point
too.
over Purdue. Purdue's offense is just a wagon. Maryland is a wagon, which keeps Grand Canyon kind of out of play here. Ooh, icky, poo-poo. Fuck it, I don't have a good answer. Yale. I mean, they're the popular pick. It's my last pick.
Yeah,
it's my last pick here. And again, you mentioned how there's always the teams, the 13 and the 12. Every year it happens for me where I pick the wrong upset. Where, I'll pick the 12 and then the 4 and flip it. So this rate, if I have UC San Diego winning, now if Yale wins, if that's the region that I suspect will be the flipped, then I've still got something to go for here.
Okay, fair enough.
Go Connecticut.
Oh, boy. Got one more pick to make here. Let's see. 11 seed or worse. What do we want to do? I'm about to just take fucking American and call it. I'm not going to do that. Should I... Man, you really setting the precedent with the play-in, picking a specific play-in team. I kind of like that, but I don't know who I like.
Go San Diego State. One of us will be fucked after tonight.
I don't. Fuck San Diego State. The Mountain West is garbage.
That's the thing. Is the Mountain West last year, how bad they performed, going to taint it this year? I like Colorado State. I believe as of now, that's the only Mountain West team I have winning a game. New Mexico's been a popular 10/7. I don't have them at the moment. I wonder if that's going to taint us, and then they're going to turn it around and win. Everyone's going to win.
I'll take Xavier. I'll take Xavier as a play-in team.
Interesting.
I
prefer Texas on that side. So that's interesting.
See, I'm torn between them because, to be quite honest, I don't know that Rodney Terry makes it through the season. He's going to make it through the season. I don't know if he makes it to next season. So just thinking from a coaching perspective, I feel like Xavier has the edge. Texas, I think, has the talent edge. Who the fuck is their ridiculous freshman that's going to get drafted like top 5? He is insane. And Trey Johnson, that's what I thought. He can easily just take over the game by himself. He's a monster. But again, there's a reason Texas has gone 19-15 this year, 6-12 in the conference. There's just something not quite clicking for them. Xavier, call it me giving respect to the Big East. Call it, maybe some respect for Sean Miller. They went 13-7 in conference this year in a tough Big East. Obviously not as tough as the SEC, but I'm going to go with Xavier as much as I hate them and see if maybe they can get a little win here against Illinois, who my lasting memory of them will just be the 30-0 run that Yukon went on against them,
And
which was
Kofi
very,
Coburn.
Kofi
spelled
Kofi Cockburn, baby. I have no
clearly
idea where he's
spelled Cockburn.
at. Him and Io DeSunmu, those were fun Illinois teams. I don't know where Kofi went. Io's chilling on the Bulls. But those are our 5 underdog 11 seed or worse teams that we are going to compete against each other with. I've got UC San Diego, Akron, Lipscomb, Drake, and Xavier. Pat's got Colorado State, VCU, Liberty, North Carolina, and Yale. So we'll see. We'll see how
picks.
it is a fun set of teams here. We'll see which of us ends up coming out with any wins, if any wins.
You want to know what's sad?
What's sad?
I would have had to have picked Central in this, even if they were a 16.
Oh, I know.
I would have had to have.
I know.
My heart is broken.
All right. Before we close out our March Madness picks, Pat, I want to let the people know maybe where we stand right now on Final Four picks, even if they don't stand the test of time until games tip off Thursday, because I don't know about you, I'm not finalizing my bracket on Tuesday night. But how are you feeling? How are you feeling about Final Four, teams that we're thinking about here right now?
I have a whiteboard over there. I wish it was a chalkboard so I could go get a piece of chalk.
If you pick all 1 seeds,
no.
Okay.
Potentially 3.
Oh my fucking god.
I like Florida and Duke as much as I like St. John's. Again, just how good Florida is offensively. Even if those St. John's is really good defensively, I don't think they're going to have the offense to keep up in that Elite Eight game. I hope the game happens. I think that will be a phenomenal Elite Eight matchup. I hope it happens. January, February, Izzo, April, May, June, July. I will go Michigan State here. Auburn. First of all, those stupid Underdog T-shirts. Shut the fuck up.
Oh, I didn't see that.
You were the number
Are
one
they
team.
wearing Underdog?
They're doubting us. It was like doubting us. It's like, you are the number one team in the fucking country.
Maybe
Calm
don't lose
down.
to fucking Yale last year and people won't be saying anything about you, you dorks.
So,
Jesus.
I mean, again, really, really good team. You know, with potentially Iowa State either losing, you have them potentially losing to Lipscomb. I think they could very well fall to North Carolina. You're looking at an easier path for Michigan State to get to the Elite Eight there. Tom Izzo, you say what you will about Tom Izzo, but, you know, like John Rothstein's phrase says, the guy knows how to win in March. So, and just to make sure I don't have all the 1 seeds, I got to go Michigan State. And it's so tough because Tennessee scares the shit out of me. Like you said, they are not. And Kentucky scares the shit out of me. So I think by default I've got to go Houston here. And again, it just feels so nasty, man. You're gonna go here and pick like 4-6 seeds, and you're gonna finish last in our pool and wonder what a.
No, that's not gonna happen. Well, all right. First, who's your national champion and championship game before? Because
As of right now, it's Florida Duke.
Florida beating Duke or Duke beating Florida?
Yes, Florida beating Duke.
Florida beating Duke. Okay. So Pat's got Florida, Michigan State, Duke, and Houston. I, as of right now, have Florida over Alabama in the championship game. We'll see if that lasts. My Midwest region, which is Houston, Tennessee, Kentucky, Purdue, very unsettled. I am also leaning toward, I guess, getting a little chalky over there with Houston.
Just so hard not to, man.
It's hard this year because it doesn't feel like. Look, 2 years ago when Yukon won in 2023, all the KenPom metrics favored us. They were like, yeah, that's a team that can win the national title despite being, I think, a 4 seed in that tournament. 4 or 5. There is nothing suggesting that any team outside of the 1, 2, or 3 seeds is going to do anything this year, which is what makes it hard picking a Final Four. Now, granted, it's not that those KenPom, analytical teams are always what make up the Final Four. In fact, that's almost never the case, that all 4 teams in the Final Four are the top 21 in offense, top 37 in defense, whatever it is. But trying to figure out what the outlier teams are going to be is tough. As of right now, Florida, Alabama, Houston, where I get really nasty, Pat, is in the South. Where
Wait, hang on. Let me guess. Guess. You're going with your A&M boys, aren't you?
I'm not. I like that.
If you say UC San Diego,
no, not
ghost
UC,
in the camera,
not
holding
UC
it sideways,
San
you're
Diego.
done.
It is right now subject to change. The Louisville Cardinals, because of.
I don't hate it.
So here's the thing, and I meant to talk about this at the top when we were giving our overall bracket takeaways. Pat, if you look at the AP poll right now, Louisville is the number 9 team in the country. How did they get an 8 seed? 8 looks absurd.
Because the voters just.
I know they're different. I know they're different entities. It's not the AP poll voters creating.
I do trust these idiot
how is it that
ADs
far
a bit
apart?
more. Though an 8 seed is crazy, and the other thing, it directly flies in the face where like you put North Carolina in because you value the ACC, yet a Louisville team that way exceeded expectations, is an 8 seed and has to go play a really good Creighton team before potentially lining up with Auburn. It doesn't feel right, and that's why I don't hate it, because that's a damn good team. It's just a damn hard draw.
Yeah, it's an insane draw. They would need to go through, obviously, Creighton, which I'm confident they can do. Auburn is a brutal draw in the second. Like, how do you justify it being that far apart? I mean, Louisville, I understand. The ACC, it probably shouldn't be respected, Pat, because it stunk this year outside of Duke. It was pretty awful. Duke and Clemson, I guess. Like, Louisville went 2 months without playing a ranked team, but they won every game. They did they beat what was put in front of them. And Rain Smith, this is part of the reason that gave me some confidence in Louisville. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. It looks like it's just pronounced Rain, which if it is, and he's a great 3-point shooter, that would be perfect. Rain Smith is the only player who actually made the NCAA tournament who is top 10 in the country in 3-pointers made per game. So if you're looking for a Jack Golke type of guy this year, it might be Rain Smith, who is ripping it with the best of them, alongside a guy like Chucky Hepburn, with a coach like Pat Kelsey, who I think is going to really, just after leaving the College of Charleston, who was a very popular pick in prior tournaments, is going to try to bring this Louisville team back to prominence. And I think he can do it. Maybe they won't make a huge run this year, but I think they're going to try to send a message for more reasons than one in this tournament. So, look, am I incredibly confident in it happening? They're an 8 seed, obviously not. But in any sort of effort to spice up a Final Four, I think Louisville's a perfectly valid pick.
It does seem like every year there's the NC State, there's the Miami, there's the San Diego State from 2 years ago. There were multiple Florida Atlantic.
Yeah.
There were 3. There was Yukon and 3 what the fuck teams in that Final Four. But like you said, it's just so hard because it's interesting. This is one of the more wide open fields that I can recall, but it still feels limited to these like top 12 or so teams but it's still open because they're all just so fucking good.
Yeah.
Like the top of college basketball this year has just been so goddamn good. And that's why it's just so hard to avoid chalk, because at least if you're wrong, then you're like, oh, well, but if you go with these crazy upsets and then it ends up being chalk, you just feel like a fucking moron.
See, I feel like if you pick the upsets and you're wrong on that, then it's like, well, at least I tried to be different and tried to, put together something that maybe can stand out a little bit. Because, God, I will say, some of these media personalities in their brackets that are literal all 1 and 2 seeds, I want to reach through my TV and strangle them, because go out on any sort of limb, just a small limb, the smallest of limbs. You don't have to go crazy. Just a tiny little baby limb is all I ask.
That's huge, man. Yeah, that's all
just
you need.
Stop being ridiculous, because it's never all 1 seeds either. I mean, maybe once every 10 years.
I remember,
but
a friend of ours in our pool had all the 1 seeds a handful of years ago, and I believe they made it, or like 3 of them.
They might, yeah. I mean, it happens.
And he
it does
waltzed
happen
to the
sometimes.
win there.
It does happen sometimes, but God, I feel like the
Hi,
bracket
Steve,
to
loyal
me,
listener.
the bracket to me is as much of creating a rooting interest for all of these random ass games that aren't involving your team as it is trying to win the pool. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. By the way, folks, launch today, posted on my Instagram as well, is the 2025 Bench Mob bracket pool. Free to join. Pat, I didn't even tell you about this yet, that I launched it, but we have the Bench Mob bracket pool. So for anybody that wants to join that, it is free to join. I'll think about any maybe potential top prizes for, the top 3 finishers or something like that, because it is going to be a big group, and if you end up finishing at the top, you should get something, but we'll figure that out. The ESPN Tournament Challenge site has been giving me a fucking problem, so let me see if I can copy.
Is this the Bench Mob Bracket Challenge?
The Bench Mob Bracket Challenge, it is. Yes, there's 125 people in it right now.
Yep, that's the one. All right.
Okay. So yeah,
I've
Pat,
joined.
you got it. Okay.
I'll throw the link in chat. Or
if you could. Mine's being a little bit of a bitch. So if you want to join that, check out either for those of you listening on any audio platform, you can either check out my Instagram, you can check out the recorded stream of this podcast on YouTube, and the link will be in there, or just search the Bench Mob Bracket Challenge. It is a public.
I searched
tool
Bench
ESPN.
Mob, and it popped for it was the first option. Incredibly easy
Okay.
to find.
Beautiful. So yeah, you could find it there and see if you can beat our dumbasses in picking these teams, which you probably will pretty handily. But
Join
that'll
the
do
woke
it.
liberal bench mob.
That'll do it, folks, for this episode of Brand Coverage, NFL news, March Madness stuff. Join us next week and see if we are, which realistically, Pat, with the second round draw against Florida, we will probably be moderately depressed at the very least. Or if we're going to be insufferable, because we somehow knocked off what I believe is the best team in the entire fucking tournament in Florida. So we'll see where we end up there. But for this week, for Pat Gustafson, I'm Brandon Carney, and we'll see you guys next time.
Bye-bye.
All right, folks, for those of you here live, we will answer your questions. First, the dono questions. Bucko always chucking the pounds at us. Every single
Bucko
week,
with the Chucko.
Bucko with the Chucko of the Poundo said, do you believe the McMillan hype with him supposedly running a 4.48 40-yard dash in his pro day? Seen him on some boards for the Pats, but surely the two quarterbacks will go, leaving either Carter or Hunter. What I've read and what I believe, I don't believe McMillan is worth the 4th overall pick. I would rather take Hunter or Carter, assuming one of them is there. Would I be okay with a trade back scenario where we get McMillan and then somebody else in the teens or the 20s? Absolutely, if that's possible, or even the 30s. I'd entertain that possibility. I do not want Tet McMillan with the 4th overall pick. I think the 40-yard dash thing, he was already kind of falling as a prospect. I've seen a lot of analysts with Matthew Golden above him now. And so for this 40-yard dash thing to revault him into these discussions, I think is just reactionary, and I don't like it. So not to discount him as a player, but no, I'm good on that.
I saw a tweet that said like Tet's 4.48 40 Wilt's 100-point game, things that allegedly happened, not caught on film.
Film.
No, but from the Patriots' perspective, especially if the top 2 picks go QB, which it seems very well, it's so goddamn hard to pass up on one of these two guys who you could argue either of them are talented enough to be the number 1 overall pick, let alone number 4.
Yeah, give me Travis Hunter, and we will figure out how to pay him $70 million in 5 years.
Genty, it's
Omega Recon with $4.99 said, for me, it was Tom Brady after he retired. Every team's fan jersey swapped him. This was relating to the T. Higgins thing we were talking about. I said it was so annoying. I was so glad when he became a part owner. Yeah, dude, the incessant jersey swaps while we wait for just anything to happen is always a big pain in the ass. Alex with $4.99 said, Bengals D also stunk in 24 because slower vets, Sam Hubbard, got playing time over faster, younger players. Yeah, look, there's something to be said for it's not going to get any worse, right? Because you're going to at least reshuffle the deck and see what different players you can get in there. It might be just as bad, but just as bad almost got them into the playoffs last year if, again, they didn't have that slow start against the Patriots, against the Chiefs. I think that's a bigger priority alongside being able to draft defensive player. Not a bigger priority, but just if you could sort out both of those things, you'll be in good shape. GP Glazer with $1.99 said, that George Pickens will still win offensive player.
big fan of this guy.
This dude donates like $2 every week just to tell me George Pickens is going to win some sort of award, usually offensive player of the year. And his name is GP_Glazer14.
That could be any GP.
And his profile picture. And his profile picture is George Pickens. Yeah, it could fucking be anybody. Bucko with another 20 pounds said, why do NFL teams have to rebuild so much? Because surely they'd have a plan already in place when players move on. For example, growing up, I never thought the Pats wouldn't reach the playoffs, not even as a wild card. I'll agree with you that sometimes it is questionable why teams don't plan a little bit more. At the same time, the quarterback position is just so important in itself, and when you are winning so much, as we've seen with the Steelers, and you're not in a position to go get a guy to just wait in the wings, it's difficult, and you find yourself in these bad situations. It's just not, it can be a difficult process.
And depending on the situation, too, the guy that you kind of pick as a succession plan may not work out. Or there will be a situation like, look at Jimmy G, for example. Would he have been a good successor to Brady? Yeah. But the fact of the matter is that they were sitting there with such a big asset sitting on their bench that they had to go and deal him to get some more things. So it just, even if you kind of do have a plan, it never always works out. The Packers it's worked twice for them now, which is remarkable for them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just think it's not as cut and dry. I think it's a lot more of a gray area.
Yeah, it's also the matter of getting those picks right. Like the Patriots, immediately after Brady left, had, the 15th overall pick where they took Mac Jones, and that just didn't fucking work. He wasn't very good. Everything else kind of tanked. And the NFL is very cyclical. When your team is really good for a long time, the pieces that make it good, A, become expensive and leave, and B, you lose coaches to other teams because you had some of the best coordinators. They'll go and be head coaches somewhere. It's just difficult. And some teams are obviously much better at it than others. Rebuilding, that is. But yeah, it's a tough thing at times. For anybody in the regular chat, we will answer some of your questions before we jump off. So hit us with them. Could be March Madness. Could be NFL related. Anything you guys want. And
be about Pat feet picks, apparently. Thanks,
could be about Pat feet picks. Do we have exclusive prizes like Pat feet picks for the bracket pool? We could entertain that. We could actually have him frame something and autograph it and send it to you.
Hell, I'll just get going right now.
Oh dear. So we should make somebody pay for that. Let's see. Lily says, who has a better chance of going farther, Yukon or Marquette? Also,
Marquette.
you can add the link in the description of the video live once it's posted. That's a good point. I will add it to the description. Marquette, yeah. And here's the thing. Marquette has a tough matchup too. I am actually torn on if I'm picking New Mexico or not over them because I like New Mexico.
I've locked in Marquette, but for more or less, they're both toss-up games here, and the way I see it is just they have a slightly easier second-round matchup than Yukon. Even though I believe Yukon, despite being the lower seed, I do believe is the better team. I mean, they swept them, but yeah, I just think with the draw and Marquette still being a good team, yeah. Do I expect either of them to get past that second round? No, probably not.
Yeah, I'm just so torn on Michigan State because in my first draft in my bracket, I had Bryant beating them because I was trying to find a 15 to beat a 2. And then I realized like how gross that region got for me. And I was like, let me just settle back to like the good teams that are in it. But it's very hard for me to trust Michigan State, Pat, because the one time I put a lot of faith in them, I had them as my national champion and they lost to Middle Tennessee State, 2 versus 15. So maybe they are less likely to succumb to that because it's happened before, and Tom Izzo's going to be like, hey, fuckers, I'm not doing this again. Stop if they end up in any sort of scary situation against Bryant. But, yeah, I don't know. I think between both Yukon and Marquette, it's a matter of if they win one game or not. And if it's whoever wins one game. Maybe they're both one and done. Alex 199 said take on Mikol to GB. Pitt also traded up for Devin Bush. Fair.
So they weren't even in the top 10. They didn't even finish top 10 worst in the league. Yeah. So they're really bad at being mid.
Okay, so Mecole Hardman got a 1-year deal from the Packers. I am entirely unmoved. They already have so many mediocre wide receivers. He is probably their wide receiver 4.
He's worse than all of them.
He is worse than all of them. Yeah, he is just worse, but maybe slightly healthier Christian Watson. So he's just going to step in whenever Christian Watson gets his annual fucking dick injury or whatever.
There was a full court inbounds pass for Alabama State to win.
No shit, really? Oh, my
Alabama
God.
State's Micah Simpson's full court pass finds Amar Knox, who scores a winning layup with 1 second left.
I'm gonna have to tune into that shit. Oh man. All right.
I'm pulling the highlight.
Let's see. Couple more questions here. Bailey says, do you expect BTJ to finish top 5 in yards again with how Cohen said he'd run the offense through him? Yeah. If Brian Thomas Jr. is healthy, absolutely. I see no reason he shouldn't. He's only getting better as a player. And if Liam Cohen can kind of bring some stability there, I think absolutely.
I see it in a similar light to how like Chris Godwin was getting hammered with targets before he got hurt. I think you could be looking at a very similar situation with a younger player.
Yeah. Absolutely.
The full court pass was nuts, by the way.
Ice Puppy said, I'm a Florida fan, but how do you think we are going to play because we finally get to play non-SEC opponents? Yeah, see, this is always the biggest wild card of March Madness is because we've gotten so used to how these teams have played, but it's all been within their own little conference bubble. I think they're going to be just fine unless the SEC as a conference is entirely fraudulent, which I just don't believe. Florida's really good. I think you're winning the national championship, personally. Let's see. One more question here before we go. Let's see. What is the Bears' draft strategy? Try to get Genty and a later round O lineman. By the way, McNeese and GCU in the chip. Okay. Bears draft strategy. I mean, look, they've mostly addressed the linemen in free agency. I'm sure they will draft some, but I don't know that they need to spend super high capital on one. So I wouldn't blame them for drafting Genty in the first if he's available to them. Genty to the Bears. Genty to the Bears is a incredibly orgasmic fit as a Ben Johnson running back. Playing with DeAndre Swift, who just stinks. Pat is just going to reject anything that involves Genty not going to the Raiders. But yeah, I think you're spot on. Running back and line should be their priorities for sure.
Absolutely.
All right, folks. That'll do it for this episode of Brand Coverage Fully. I will again put that link to the bracket pool in the description. Thank you guys for tuning in. For Pat Gustafson, I'm Brandon Carney, and this is March.